My debit card was declined while I was buying my granddaughter's birthday gift. There was more than enough money in the account. I knew that because I'd checked the balance that morning. The cashier tried again. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's still declining." 2 people were waiting behind me. My granddaughter Claire wasn't there, thank goodness. The gift was supposed to be a surprise. I paid with a credit card instead, walked to my car, and called the bank. After several security questions, the representative pulled up my account. Then she said something I didn't understand. "There appears to be an additional safeguard on the account following concerns about recent activity." "What concerns?" She paused. I tightened my grip on the phone. "Who raised them?" The representative couldn't discuss every detail, but she confirmed the name connected to the concern. Melissa Grant. My daughter. 6 weeks earlier, I had given Melissa access to that account for one reason. If I ever had an emergency, she could help. I hadn't realized she had started deciding what counted as one. And sitting in that parking lot, I suddenly wanted to know exactly how much of my financial life my daughter had been watching. It had started with a $73 utility bill. I was 77 years old, and I had been managing my own money for longer than Melissa had been alive. For 31 years, I worked in accounts receivable for a medical supply company. Invoices, balances, late payments, reconciliations. Numbers didn't frighten me. After my divorce in my early 50s, I bought a small house on my own. I paid it off before I retired. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable. My retirement income covered my expenses. I had savings. I had no debt beyond a credit card I paid off every month. And until that spring, I couldn't remember the last time I'd missed a household payment. Then my electric company switched me to paperless billing. I thought I had set up automatic payment. I hadn't. The email disappeared under a pile of newsletters and appointment reminders. By the time I noticed, a late notice had arrived. I paid it immediately. The fee was $9. That should have been the end of it. Unfortunately, Melissa came over that afternoon. She saw the notice beside my laptop. "What's this?" "I missed the electric bill." Her head came up. "You forgot to pay it?" I overlooked the email. "Has that happened before?" "No." "You're sure?" I looked at her. "Melissa, I think I would know." She sat down. My daughter was 50 and worked as an office manager for an insurance agency. She was efficient, organized, and when something worried her, she didn't like leaving it alone. "What if it had been your property tax?" "It wasn't." "What if they shut off the electricity?" "They didn't." "Mom, that's not the point." I already knew where the conversation was going. "I paid it." She looked at the notice again. "I just think we should have some kind of backup." "We?" "In case something happens." There was nothing unreasonable about those words. That was what made the next 6 weeks possible. Melissa suggested putting her on my primary checking account. I said no. She brought it up again 3 days later. "What if you're in the hospital? You can bring me my laptop. What if you can't use it?" "Then we'll figure it out." She sighed. "Why wait until there's a crisis?" I told her I wasn't comfortable giving anyone routine access to my checking account. She said she didn't want to control anything. She only wanted to be able to help. Then she said the sentence I eventually believed. "You won't even notice I'm there." 2 weeks after the missed bill, I agreed. We went to the bank together and arranged access to the account. I remember Melissa smiling afterward. "Now we don't have to worry." I should have asked who she meant by we. At first, she was right. I barely noticed. Then, one Monday evening, Melissa called. "Did you go to Bellini's Saturday?" "Yes." "With who?" I lowered the book I was reading. "Why?" "There's a charge for $182. I knew exactly what she was talking about. 3 women I'd worked with had come into town. We hadn't all been together in nearly 2 years. I paid for dinner. It was mine. You spent almost $200 on dinner? I didn't spend it accidentally. I thought maybe your card had been compromised. It wasn't. Okay, good. That should have been the end of the call. Instead, she added, "That's a lot for dinner." I waited. She seemed to realize she'd gone too far. I'm not judging. It sounded remarkably similar. I'm just trying to recognize anything unusual. I let it go. A week later, she called about a $500 cash withdrawal. What was that for? I stared at the phone. Do I have to submit receipts now? Mom, I withdrew cash. I can see that. Then we're both caught up. She didn't appreciate the joke. Neither did I, really. The cash was for several things. My housekeeper preferred cash. So did the man who occasionally trimmed my trees. And sometimes I simply liked having money in my wallet without every cup of coffee appearing on a statement. I didn't explain any of that. 3 days later, Melissa texted me about a donation to the local food pantry. Did you mean to send $300? I replied, yes. She sent back, just checking. Those 2 words started irritating me more every time I saw them. Just checking. Just helping. Just in case. Then my son called. Mark was 47 and traveled for work. He and I talked once or twice a week, usually about ordinary things. That evening we were discussing his upcoming trip to Dallas when he said, "Melissa told me you've been spending more lately." I stopped. What? He immediately changed his tone. Nothing bad. What exactly did Melissa tell you? Just that there have been some unusual charges. They aren't unusual to me. I know. Then why are my checking account transactions part of a conversation between you and your sister? Mom, we're just worried. There was that word again. We. What are you worried about? Scams. Mistakes. You know. No, I don't know. Mark sighed. People get taken advantage of. People of all ages get taken advantage of. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. He was quiet. Then he said something I didn't forget. We're just trying to make sure your money lasts. My money. Their concern? I ended the call shortly afterward. That night I considered calling Melissa and telling her the arrangement was over. I didn't. That was my mistake. I told myself she was worried because she loved me. I told myself Mark meant well. And I told myself that if I made a big issue out of a few questions, I would look defensive. So I stayed quiet. Melissa interpreted my silence differently. About 2 weeks later, I hired a landscaper. There was an ugly strip along the back of my property where nothing grew properly. For years, I'd said I wanted to redo it. I finally decided to stop talking about it. The landscaper designed a small stone path, planted low-maintenance shrubs, replaced 2 dying bushes, and added a bench beneath the maple tree. The total was just over $2,400. I could afford it. I paid him. The next morning, Melissa called. What did you spend $2,400 on? No hello. No good morning. Straight to the transaction. Landscaping. $2,400? Yes. What did they do? Why? Because that's a lot of money. It was the estimate I approved. Did you get another estimate? No. She exhaled. Mom, you can't just hand people thousands of dollars. I didn't hand a stranger thousands of dollars. I hired a landscaper. You don't even know if that's a fair price. I decided it was worth it. But why do you need to spend that much on the backyard now? That question stopped me. Now? You know what I mean. No. Explain it. She hesitated. Then she said it. Why would you spend that much on landscaping at 77? I looked through my kitchen window. The landscaper was outside positioning the new bench. Because I'm 77, Melissa. What does that mean? It means, how long exactly would you like me to wait to enjoy it? That isn't what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? You need to think about what things might cost later. What things? Care, help, medical expenses, whatever happens. I laughed once, but there was nothing funny about it. So I should stop using my money now because I may need to use it later? That's not fair. It sounds accurate. You know how expensive long-term care can be? Yes. Then why are you acting like this doesn't matter? I felt something shift during that conversation. Until then, I thought Melissa was checking for fraud. Now I understood she was judging the purpose of my spending. She wasn't asking, "Did Mom make this purchase?" She was asking, "Should Mom have made this purchase?" Those are very different questions. Melissa, I appreciate your concern. Then listen to me. I am listening. I'm not agreeing. She went quiet. Finally, she said, "You have to start thinking about what happens later." I looked outside again. The landscaper had finished the bench. I've spent my whole life thinking about later. Then I hung up. 3 days afterward, I went shopping for Claire's birthday. Claire was Melissa's daughter. She was turning 24 and finishing graduate school. For months, she'd been talking about a leather work bag she'd seen. It was expensive enough that she wouldn't buy it for herself. I decided I would. The bag cost a little over $400. I brought it to the register. The cashier smiled. "Birthday? My granddaughter." She ran my debit card. Declined. I thought I'd entered the PIN incorrectly. We tried again. Declined. The embarrassment wasn't dramatic. Nobody pointed. Nobody laughed. That almost made it worse. The cashier lowered her voice. "Do you have another card you'd like to try?" "Yes." I paid with my credit card. Then I walked out carrying a birthday gift I'd just bought with a card I hadn't planned to use because someone had interfered with the account holding my own money. I sat in my car and opened my banking app. The money was there, plenty of it. So I called. The bank representative reviewed the account. She mentioned an additional safeguard connected to concerns about recent spending activity. I asked who had raised the concern. Eventually, I heard Melissa's name. My daughter had contacted the bank. The representative explained what had been placed on the account and what needed to happen to review or remove it. I listened carefully. Then I asked, "What else can the other person on this account do?" The answer was more complicated than I expected. It depended on exactly how the account access had been established. The representative recommended that I come in and review everything if I no longer wanted the arrangement to work the way it currently did. I thanked her. Then I sat in the parking lot for another 5 minutes. Melissa hadn't taken my money. Not $1 was missing. Somehow that made the situation harder. If she'd stolen from me, I would have known exactly what to do. Instead, she had convinced herself she was protecting me. And because of that, she had crossed a line without seeing herself cross it. I didn't call her first. I called Mark. "What has Melissa told you about my finances?" He hesitated. "Mom, answer me." "Just general stuff." "What stuff?" He listed it reluctantly. The restaurant, cash withdrawals, my donation, the landscaping. Then he mentioned long-term care. I hadn't discussed long-term care with Mark. "Why are you two discussing that?" "Because it's something we have to think about." "We?" There was a pause. Eventually, yes. I leaned back in my chair. "What else?" "Nothing." "Mark," he sighed. "She was wondering whether you should keep so much money in accounts you use regularly." "And what did you say?" "I said maybe you should talk to somebody." "Did either of you consider talking to me?" "We knew you'd get upset." That answer sounded familiar. "So instead, you discussed my money without me." "We're only trying to protect what you have." "For whom?" Silence. Then he said, "That's not fair." Maybe it wasn't, but he didn't answer. I called Melissa next. She answered cheerfully. "Hi, Mom. Did you call my bank about my spending?" Silence. Then? "Yes." No denial. No hesitation. "Why?" "Because there were several transactions that worried me." "You could have called me." "I did call you." "No. You questioned me. Then you called my bank. I was trying to make sure nothing was happening. Something was happening. I was spending my money. You're making this sound worse than it was. My card was declined today. That silenced her. Where? That doesn't matter. What were you buying? I almost laughed. Even then, she wanted to know. Do you hear yourself? I was just asking. No, Melissa, that's the problem. You're always just asking until you don't like the answer. Her voice hardened. You've made several large purchases recently. A dinner, landscaping, a donation, and a birthday gift. You withdrew cash too. I stared at the wall. You have a list. I can see the account. That was supposed to be for emergencies. And what if somebody was scamming you? Then ask me. You get defensive because you're monitoring me. Because I'm worried. Worry does not make the account yours. I never said it did. Then why did my ability to use it change because you were uncomfortable? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she started listing stories she'd heard. A friend's father who lost thousands to a phone scam. An older client at her office who gave banking information to someone pretending to be from Medicare. Another woman who sent money to someone online. All real risks. All legitimate concerns. None of them were me. Then Melissa finally said what she had really been thinking. If something happens and the money is gone, Mark and I are the ones who will have to figure everything out. There it was. Not greed. Not inheritance. Fear of responsibility. My choices felt personal to her because she believed their consequences might eventually become hers. I understood that, but understanding it did not give her authority. Removing me won't make those risks disappear, she said. No. So, what are you going to do? I don't know yet. That was the last thing I said before hanging up. That evening, I reviewed 6 months of bank statements. I wanted to see my finances as Melissa apparently saw them. I found nothing alarming. My expenses had increased slightly. The landscaping accounted for most of it. I had taken friends to dinner, given money to charity, bought gifts, paid my bills. My savings remained healthy. There was no secret disaster hiding in the numbers. But something else became clear. If I left the arrangement unchanged, every purchase Melissa disliked could become evidence. Every cash withdrawal could become suspicious. Every gift could become irresponsible. And every disagreement could eventually become another attempt to protect me from myself. I didn't need to lose my money, to lose control of it. If someone else could interfere whenever they disagreed with me, then eventually I would be spending with their approval in mind. That was enough. The next morning, I called the bank. I made an appointment for Friday. I went alone. I told the representative exactly what had happened and what I wanted. We reviewed how the account had been structured. We discussed alternatives. I asked more questions that morning than I had when Melissa and I first set everything up. That was another thing I had learned from my own mistake. Trust is not a substitute for clarity. I changed the arrangement. Melissa no longer had the same routine access to my everyday checking activity. I also created a separate emergency setup so someone could still help if I genuinely became unable to handle my affairs. I updated my financial information. I organized the necessary documents. I made sure the right people would know what to do in a real emergency. I did not reject planning. I planned better. When I left the bank, I bought myself coffee. I paid with my debit card. Approved. I smiled. Not because I had defeated my daughter. There was nothing satisfying about needing to draw a boundary with someone I loved. But the account worked the way I wanted it to work again. That mattered. I asked Melissa and Mark to come over Sunday afternoon. Melissa arrived first. Mark came 10 minutes later. They sat at my kitchen table. I didn't offer a long introduction. I changed the bank arrangement. Melissa stared at me. You removed me? Yes. Completely? I changed what you have access to. She leaned back. I can't believe you did that without talking to me. Mark looked down at the table. I let the sentence sit there. Then I said, "You called my bank without talking to me." Melissa's face tightened. That was different. No, it was exactly the reason I changed it. What happens if you get sick? I made an emergency arrangement. With who? The appropriate people know what they need to know. Why won't you tell us? I will tell you what affects your responsibilities. You do not need access to every purchase I make. She looked hurt. That bothered me. But it did not change my decision. Mark finally spoke. We're your children. We're going to worry. You're allowed to worry. We're trying to help. You're allowed to help. Melissa folded her arms. So we're just supposed to watch if you make a bad decision? No. I looked at both of them. If you're worried about something, ask me. Melissa started to interrupt. I raised my hand. Once. She stopped. You can tell me why you're worried. You can recommend that I talk to my bank, an attorney, a financial advisor, whoever makes sense. Then I looked directly at Melissa. But you cannot call my bank because you don't like how I spent my money. She looked away. And neither of you will discuss my transactions with each other as though I'm not part of the conversation. Mark nodded first. Melissa didn't. I continued. I saved this money so I could support myself. That includes future care. It also includes living now. No one said you couldn't enjoy it, Melissa said. You questioned why I landscaped my backyard because I'm 77. She looked embarrassed. I worded that badly. Yes, you did. I was scared. I know. That softened the room slightly. She looked at me. I don't want you to lose everything because somebody takes advantage of you. And I don't want fear of losing everything to become the reason I'm no longer allowed to decide anything. She didn't answer, so I gave them the boundary as clearly as I could. You can help me. I paused. You cannot manage me. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. Then Mark nodded. Melissa took longer. Finally, she said, I still think you're taking a risk. Maybe. And if something happens, then we'll deal with what actually happens. She looked down. I knew she didn't like that answer, but she understood it. The next 2 weeks were awkward. Melissa stopped asking about money completely. Almost too completely. If I mentioned buying something, she changed the subject. I let her. We both needed time. Mark went back to calling about ordinary things. Work, travel, baseball. The account stayed private. The emergency plan stayed in place. And the new landscaping looked better every week. About a month later, Melissa came over for coffee. We sat outside near the maple tree. She looked at the stone path. This actually turned out nice. I smiled. $2,400, nice? She rolled her eyes. Then she became serious. I probably should have called you before I called the bank. It wasn't a perfect apology. I didn't need one. Yes, I said. You should have. She nodded. We left it there. Melissa still worries about scams. Mark still thinks I should be more conservative with my savings. I still think one forgotten electric bill caused my children to question me far too quickly. None of those disagreements disappeared, but the arrangement changed. My children can worry. They can advise me. They can help when I ask. They cannot turn concern into authority simply because they believe they're protecting me. There's a difference between giving someone access when you need help and giving them authority whenever they disagree with you. I didn't understand that difference clearly enough when I put Melissa on my account. I do now. And Claire loved the birthday gift. She carried that bag to her first job interview 2 months later. Melissa never asked what it cost. If you gave your adult child access to your bank account for emergencies, would you remove them after they interfered with one of your purchases? And where do you think financial protection becomes financial control? Tell me in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy senior family stories about money, family boundaries, adult children, and the conflicts older women face inside their own families, Please like this video and subscribe to the channel.